Okay, hi everyone. So I'm Smithy Q, and today we're looking at Game 8, the annotated games section of my course. This is going to be Oldrich Duras versus basically an amateur. This is part of a simultaneous game. And here, we're going to be looking at something we haven't looked at previously. This is known as the Blackmar-Diemer Gambit, where we play e4, after knight c3, knight f6, f3, we're offering a pawn for really fast development. And we can see exactly what's happening here. After take, both knights are developed. Both bishops, wow, I'm really good at drawing arrows, have really natural squares. And after we castle, this rook actually goes on the f-file, combined with the bishop staring at f7. Um, White can have a very quick attack right away. I highly recommend, especially for those who are more beginner out there, to play openings like this because your pieces just come alive. At this point, you're just going to take each of your remaining pieces, you're going to put them on the best diagonals, you're going to castle, put your rooks to open lines, and then you look to attack. And this game shows that strategy in absolute spades. Let's see what Black does. Black starts by playing e6, which is, I don't want to say it's a mistake, but it kind of feels like a mistake because now this bishop is staring behind its pawn. Now, the advantage of playing e6 is that it immediately blunts this diagonal. So, in other words, bringing the bishop to c4 now doesn't make as much sense, and that's why Duras, he just puts it on d3, the second best diagonal. This is often how you want to think in these positions, right? If I'm just going to back up, one of the most common positions in chess, of course, is e4, e5. Here. Where do we want to develop this bishop? Right? Do we put it on e2? I mean, it's not doing very much there. Do you put it on d3, which is staring at a pawn? Again, it's not hugely improved. What do we put it on c4? Ah, it's now controlling basically the most amount of the board possible. And then the last, of course, possibility is going to bishop goes to b5, directly challenging the knight, and still doing an excellent job of controlling the board. But look at what the difference after bishop goes to after c5. One of the most common moves in online blitz is this bishop goes to c4 because it looks like, isn't it controlling the same thing? But it's actually not because black can play e6, and now look, this bishop is staring at a wall of pawns. And d5 is probably going to come, kicking that bishop away. If we compare that, to this position, there is no d5. We control it more than black does. There's no way that black can get into d5. So when you're looking at where do you develop your bishops, we get to a position like this. What is the best diagonal? What's the clearest diagonal? And here there's a clear winner. It's bishop d3, and it's got the advantage of staring down at h7. That may or may not matter later. Let's find out. Black plays bishop b4, which, again, it's not a mistake, but it's probably not the best move. Simply because, I mean, look, bishop g5 is probably going to come, pinning this knight. And this bishop probably would rather be back on e7. And also, don't forget, black is up a pawn. And so black just needs to play simple, developing, calm moves, and hopefully it'll be okay. White castles. It's a pretty easy play from white. And now black exchanges. Take, take. And now this is definitely a mistake. You can sort of see it right here. In this position, it's black to move. He has two pieces developed to white's three, right? So that's a 3-to-2 ratio. After the exchange, it's down to a 2-to-1 ratio. Like mathematically, this is a better advantage for white. But then just also, this exchange, it's not hurting white. I think there's a lot of people, they look at this like, aha, white has worse pawns. This must be better for black. Pawns, especially double pawns like this, they only really matter if you can attack them. How can you attack these as black? And that silence is really showing how you can do it. You can't. There is no way to attack these pawns. Certainly nothing immediate. I mean, if this c-file were open, sure, maybe. But as it is, it's not. But also, I want you to look at the difference. If we were to back up, before, this bishop can only develop on this diagonal. Where could this rook go? Right now, it's got absolutely nothing. After take, take, look, this bishop now also has this diagonal, which is slicing right through the black position. Black would love to put a bishop, here to exchange it. Oh, but he can't because he just exchanged his bishop. Also, this rook has an open file to potentially play with. And also, we could just even back up. Right now, this pawn is only defended by a piece, which means that, for example, if white wanted to play knight goes to e5, that's not going to work. Queen takes d4. It's with check. You just lost the pawn. After exchange, look, this pawn is fully protected. So white has strengthened his center. He's gotten extra avenues for development. And the only thing black has done is spend 2 turns, whoops, with the same piece to make white's job better. White's position is better. So very, very bad. Don't do that. Like, huge lesson for this. Because I want you to now watch how white just completely takes over this game. So black castles. Okay, good job, black. Uh-oh, bishop a3. So the bishop immediately comes to that diagonal. It's hitting the rook with tempo. Rook's forced to move. And so now here, you're developed. You've got all of your minor pieces developed. You've castled. You've controlled the center. Good job, white. So now we're sort of moving beyond the opening principles. We're entering the middle game. So, in other words, our focus is shifting. Instead of just developing our pieces, we want to be able to use our pieces. How can we move them forward? How can we attack? That's really the central idea. We want to develop our pieces so we can then use them to attack stuff. White plays knight e5. And hopefully these glut of arrows is showing exactly what's happening here. Look how every white piece is aiming, generally, at the queen side. Sorry, at the king side. The only piece that isn't is this rook, and it can slide over pretty quickly anyway. And look at black, completely undeveloped. This is very scary. And even this rook, even though it's developed, rooks in the back rank, they're notoriously bad at defending. And so white has an absolutely massive initiative. Black, he plays a really natural move, knight c6, hoping to exchange. And again, we can put our tactics hat on now at this point. We don't want to just exchange. Like, that's a fine move. It's going to cripple his pawn structure. But again, we want to do something more. We have our pieces. So there's something bigger that we can do. We don't want to just do an exchange for the sake of an exchange. We want to be able to cash in our development with something big. f7 is the eternal weak point. We've got a rook already there. Again, we have so much coming down here. Let's take a look. Does it work? Knight takes f7. Black doesn't take it. What happens if black were to have taken it? Queen goes to h5. Here's the problem. We've got the pin. The queen comes in. Again, this bishop is cutting off this diagonal, so the only move, really, is to come all the way back. Then we're simply going to exchange. Sorry, and obviously, g6 isn't going to work. You're taking, there's still a pin. This is absolutely lights out. In fact, it's checkmate. And so going back, and now we're able to simply sacrifice on here. We're removing the defender. That is, we've got this attack right here. Take. If you recapture the pawn, that's checkmate again. Recapturing here. Well, now this rook has nothing there, and that's checkmate. Everything came alive. White's huge advantage in time was able to cash in. Now, that's not how the game went. Black, he was an amateur, but he knew enough not to take this. He ended up playing queen goes to d5. I mean, he had to do something. If you're not going to take the knight was attacking the queen, he's going to move the queen somewhere. So what do we do next? Duras finds a really cool move. He plays knight goes to h6, check, with the idea if after take, we take with the rook. Again, we have everything. It's just going to go right in there, and black is not going to survive this. So instead, he moves the king. All right, what do we do next? Again, we don't have to worry about this knight, right? Because if it's taken, we will always simply recapture. So it's simply an exchange that worsens black's position. So we have time to do something else. In the game, Duras played queen goes to d2. And here's where I'm just going to point out that this was a simultaneous game. So Duras was actually playing 31 games at the same time. And so that explains why he didn't find the absolute best move. Again, you put your tactics hat on. Black's king is in a world of hurt. Is there a way that we can just come on in? And the best move is rook takes f6, g takes f6. You then bring the queen up. The immediate threat is simply knight f7. That's going to be checkmate. We can just move the other rook in here. And it's extraordinarily difficult. White is absolutely completely winning in this position. Instead, we play queen d to d2, which is still a good move. And this is something that I hope to also distill through games like this, is that you don't always need to find the best move. Once you get a good position, a lead in time, often there are many good moves. And sure, the computer, when you analyze it afterwards on chess.com or on Lichess, might say, oh, question mark, this move wasn't very good. But white is still completely winning in this position. So you don't have to worry about that. Find a good move. There's probably lots of them once you have a lead in time. Black brings his knight all the way back to e7. White throws in f7 here, and now Duras finally finds the correct move. Rook takes f6, fully destroying that kingside pawn structure. What's the follow-up? Queen's going to slide in, not to g5 because we can't go there anymore, but to h6. And now the threat is right here on h7. And so for you can't take the knight. It's really, really simple. We got check. We're going to bring this one. We're threatening checkmate right here. And this is just how you finish that game off. What happens instead? After queen goes to h6, he tried to play f5. Also makes sense, blocking in right here. But then we're able to use the other piece. Knight goes to g5. It's going to be check and mate. Nothing you can do, and that's game over. So did you see how easy that kind of was? White started by, simply developing. Black helped white. And at this point, black's position is really bad. Back here, like it's okay. By making this exchange, by moving that piece twice just to help white's position, black fell far too much behind in time. Like this move, there's just so much coming in here. And so there's two steps. There's using the opening principles to get to a good position. And then you've got to sort of swap into middle game mode and start thinking, how can I, use these pieces? How can I cash in? And so again, you're not thinking about exchanging, you're thinking about cashing in, taking the most advantage you can. Now, even here, again, knight takes c6 isn't the end of the world. White is still doing really good here. But, so again, the idea that there's only one move. If you can't see knight takes f7 for whatever reason, knight takes c6 is good to fall back on. There's often many good moves. But if you can find the best moves, then it's going to, again, just absolutely fantastic attack coming right in. Brilliant, beautiful games. And this is how I want you to play chess. I would love to see you share games like this by getting a lead into time, turning into middle game mode, and then looking for those tactics and sacrifices. Anyways, I'm repeating myself at this point, so we're going to cut it there. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next games. Bye for now.